The premise of Metro Exodus is one of hope and struggle. Set a couple of years after the events of Metro Last Light, it sees Artyom, Miller and a handful of Spartan Rangers travel across the vast expanse of Russia via a coal-powered train named the Aurora. Gone are the dark, claustrophobic tunnels of the crumbling metro system, and instead we're treated to the vast landscapes of the Volga Basin, the Caspian Sea and the huge Russian Taija. Gone too is the linear nature of the action. Instead, Artyom must traverse huge open areas scavenging for resources in a series of maps more suited to an open-world survival game, rendering it largely unrecognisable from the games that have preceded it. Exodus is an ambitious project, moving this series from a niche corridor shooter with survival and horror elements to a sprawling open-world crafting adventure where some of what made the Metro series stand out has sadly been lost. Exodus is born from the premise of the redemption ending. Artyom is alive and now married to Anna, the daughter of the Spartan leader Miller. There's no trace of the son that was suggested from the Celavi ending, an event that never felt explicitly like Artyom had to die for it to happen, and so Exodus begins, at least for me, with a huge gap between my understanding of where the story is and where Exodus actually begins. It creates the unusual feeling that nothing makes sense, which is arguably a failing on the side of the writers. You see, much of the narrative is delivered through overheard conversations, and there are a lot of them. There's the incessant babbling of your beloved wife Anna, the strategic planning of Miller and the task force of Rangers, to the muttering and complaints of the various enemy factions you need to listen to in their entirety if you want to stand any chance of understanding what's happened. Sometimes these overheard conversations lead to different ways to approach an enemy base. Two soldiers overheard discussing plans to stop me infiltrating their base led me to a cave that gave me a backdoor into the village by bypassing a ton of enemies in doing so. Listening is good, but there's such a huge amount of it that you forget at times you're playing a game. So often do you find yourself doing nothing but twiddling your thumbs waiting for a character to stop speaking. Wouldn't even be that bad if you could participate in the conversations, but Artyom is mute. He says nothing at all, even as his adoring wife rushes to greet him and breathily asks him if he's okay after his latest brush with death. Artyom has always been a silent protagonist, despite hearing his voice during his diary monologues, but in Exodus it feels strange to stand dumbly while the rest of the cast of characters talk at you, sometimes for several minutes at a time. Stealth has always played a big part in the Metro series, and there is a big focus on it again here. Despite the huge areas Artyom can explore, it's still advised wherever possible to be as silent as you can. Your weapons are made from scavenged parts and are prone to jamming. Bullets are also a rare resource, so wherever possible, you should try and silently take down your enemies. Much of your time will be spent scavenging areas from resources which to craft bullets and repair your guns, and you'll be gifted a field repair pack early on which you can craft syringes, air filters, etc. while on sorties. Dotted around the map are areas to discover that effectively function as safe houses, usually equipped with a workbench where you can clean and repair your equipment, and a bed you can use just to forward time on. Attacking enemy bases at night time is recommended as it's easier to slip in unnoticed, but that carries with it an added danger in that the various mutated animals that inhabit the world of Metro tend to be more active under the cover of nightfall. Slipping into a base undetected, slowly and patiently working your way around, turning off lights and dispatching enemies never gets old though, with myriad ways to approach each one from underground tunnels to ventilation systems to the aforementioned hidden cave. Patience is definitely a virtue, because if things go wrong and you're spotted, you will find yourself in a difficult gunfight. The shooting is varied enough to be interesting, but it isn't anything groundbreaking. The game suffers a little bit from a lack of feedback when a shot connects with the enemy, and at times the aiming seems a little off, whereby in one instance you'll execute a perfect headshot, and in the next it seemingly has no impact at all on your foe. The enemies themselves range from being bullet sponges to falling over at the faintest whiff of damage in the direction, but what they are good at is moving positions to keep you working hard, and they're also a deadly shot, meaning you have to choose your engagements very wisely. Movement can sometimes feel sluggish, with moments during running where your speed will inexplicably drop for no reason, or where your character gets caught on an unseen object in the environment. Characters will also push you out of the way if you're standing in their pre-programmed path. The environments are Exodus' strongest element, with some truly exceptional lighting work. The post-nuclear landscape is eerily beautiful, with twisted metal structures rising from the ground, long-abandoned vehicles left to rust, and crumbling structures. The inside living spaces of the various inhabitants of the Metro universe are beautifully detailed, with objects from the past reutilised to create cosy spaces. The Aurora in particular is a lovely space to inhabit, with each of the carriages reflecting their various owners, and a communal area that feels lively and homely. Metro Exodus feels like a game where its ambitions have outstripped its abilities. That isn't to say it's a bad game, not by any stretch. The story, while obtusely told through the overhead conversations, is interesting, and I was suitably invested in helping Artyom and his friends find a new home. The environments themselves are gorgeous, with outstanding visual finesse, and the moments where you're forced underground are skin-crawlingly good. The stealth sections have always been excellent, with well-crafted spaces to manoeuvre around in, but there is feeling that the sections between these moments are too big. There's just too much time spent doing not very much at all, either standing around listening to endless conversations that you have no input in, or creeping through barren open spaces that feel more dead than alive. The world of Exodus feels very much like it doesn't need you to exist in it, which is an unusual feeling for the hero of a story like this.